All right, Tom, thanks very much. And I can see there's some people kind of out behind you taking a look at the conditions. But of course, you know, the reminder is we're not really through this yet. We want people to stay inside.
Yeah, you know, I was thinking about that. People come out with their umbrellas to take some pictures and look around. I saw some people riding their bikes. Gotta love a bike rider. But I wonder how much sense there is that that maybe there's a little more to this storm to come through. So hopefully they don't stray too far from their homes when the rain and wind comes back. However strong it may or may not be, we'll find out.
Says the expert bike rider himself, I must add. All right, Tom, thanks for being out there. Be careful.
I'm not riding a bike today.
No, I don't blame you for that. Be careful out there. We know you have plenty more to come out there for storms in your area. We have a major update now. Unfortunately, I just heard from Constable Mark Herman, and another person has died in their own home because a tree fell on it. This is in the 17,000 block of Rustic Pine Trail in Houston. So we mentioned earlier a man in Humble, now a woman in Houston has died because another tree has fallen onto her home. Obviously, trees are the huge concern right now, everybody. And so please just try to get it, they're saying, to get into the interior of your home in the safest place where you can, away from windows, whatever you can do. But when it falls on the roof of your home, I just don't know that you can find a safe place in there, but you just have to do what you can to keep your family as safe as you can.
Yeah, and like you were saying, when we had the big drought that we did last year, that really tends to kind of loosen up the earth that's kind of holding trees in place. And then when you have massive water on it, it's so much easier for a great big heavy tree to fall over. And so we really kind of had the perfect storm leading up to this. So it's heartbreaking to hear that we have another situation like that.
It's so sickening. So far that we know of 2 deaths in our area because of Hurricane Beryl. Right now, let's give you an idea of what some of that high water looks like. It's a little difficult to tell because it's so windy. It is shaking this Houston TranStar camera all over the place. But right now, we're giving you a live look at Highway 288 at 610 through this Houston TranStar camera. It looks like that might be a vehicle, unfortunately, under the water. If you look to the far right-hand side of your screen, I see another vehicle that might be trapped. They have nowhere to go because they can't get through.
It's pretty deep right now, and this is, you know, what we're seeing time and time again when we see vehicles trying to get through. They push it. They're not sure how deep it is, and that's where we're seeing people get into trouble. And we're seeing it happen live on our air over and over again. And this is, you know, 288 at 610, but I'm looking at the Houston TranStar, and I just want to give you, we've got a number of high water situations that they're reporting. I just want to go over some of them so that you're aware. I-10 Katy eastbound at Houston Avenue. We've got I-69. I-69 southwest northbound at Dunleavy, and several on 288. The managed lane northbound at McGregor, high water there, northbound at Holcomb Boulevard on 288 at the entrance ramp there. And again, these images coming in, we've been looking at this for a while. This is at the 610 South Loop that we've been showing you. So, you know, to the point that Tom was making about seeing people out, we know people are curious. You want to get out. You're tired of being pent up. You want to look and see what the damage is, but we're still seeing the bottom half of this thing moving through the area, which means all of those winds and all of that rain is going to be kicking up again if it hasn't already. And so this is why we really want to urge you, don't go out in your cars. Don't go out of your homes yet. We're really not through this.
Right now, we want to let you know about a fire that we've just learned about in Southwest Houston. So we're closely monitoring what's happening to that. But look at these flames. This is a very dramatic scene going on. We are trying to figure out exactly what's going on. I certainly hope nobody is injured in this. But look at those flames just shooting up and all the smoke coming. And it looks like it might be, it's hard to tell if it's a construction site or what this is because that fence looks a little unsturdy to be a home. But we have our crews out there, as you can tell.
Do we know which crew this is? It's Jade. Okay, Jade, and she's in the Rosenberg area. So that's what we know so far. We're not quite sure what road this is. We're working to get that information. Of course, we want our crew to be safe first. They're pretty close to it. That was our photographer, Ed, there. So, yeah, we can see these flames are kind of kicking up, and it looked like he was kind of, like running to get out of the area. So just incredible. We don't know, what may have sparked this fire, or what exactly is burning. It's right there next to the road. So, of course, that could be really hazardous if there's anybody that was, trying to drive through that area. It doesn't look like it's particularly a high water area. You almost kind of wish it was. If there was some high water there, that might help to put some of these flames out. But it's burning pretty good. And again, this is our crew, Jade Fleury, is in the Rosenberg area. So I'm guessing that this is in that area somewhere. And so we're working right now to see if we can get you some more. It's Southwest Houston.
It's Windswept
Lane.
And Southwest Houston.
And do we know anything about what? Okay, we don't know yet what might be there that is burning. Whether there's a business next to this, or
and this reminds
what this
me
might
of
be.
So many hurricanes in the past where we've seen historic restaurants burn down downtown Houston when things like this happen. And so it's certainly a huge risk when you have winds this high. So many different things can happen, and so not only trees down, but fires can certainly spark. And so, my goodness, this is just such a dramatic scene unfolding. And that's what our crews are finding all over the area, the whole greater Houston area. Every turn they make, they're finding something else. And so you can tell our crews are staying back as safely as they can, but now that smoke is barreling toward them. So they're probably going to have to back up to make sure that they stay safe in this situation, because it looked like that wind gust changed just a little bit the direction of that smoke coming right at them now.
Yeah, we don't want them trying to push through that. They've really, they're giving us an incredible view of it. But really, you don't know whether something, might explode or what have you, because we don't know what it is that's burning.
Let's check in with Jade right now, who's in that area. Jade, tell us what you're seeing and how you came upon this.
It's getting the electrical lines now.
Jade, can you hear us?
Shit.
Are you guys talking to me here?
Yes.
Yes, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes, you're on a hot line.
The fire departments are pulling up right now. Yes. The fire department just pulled up right now. We're told by a business across the street that this is the flea market, and we can see that this fire is burning power lines, possibly even transformers. And honestly, it's getting bigger, so we're trying to kind of back up, but we have fire crews behind us. Now we're kind of trapped in here. But just stand by. Firefighters are about to head over there. Surprisingly, with this downpour going on, it's not enough rain to put out that fire. And we were just driving on 59 and we saw the smoke, so we figured we'd go check it out. But this is what's going on, and it's very surprising that an incident like this can happen in the middle of a hurricane.
But we saw that just some flashes of bright white light. Is that was that the electrical lines that you're referring to?
Yeah, that's what it looks like. It looks like they're sparking because they're burning right now.
And tell me about the smoke. Are you able to breathe okay? Do you feel like you're safe?
Luckily, we're in the car, but I can smell the smoke from the car. And our photographer, Ed, when he went outside to go ask what facility that was, he said that he heard loud noises and popping. Luckily, I don't hear anything right now, but we still see that flashing. It's kind of hard to see through the camera, but in person, you can see sparks and stuff flying.
And it looks like the fire department
It looks like the smoke is turning white, so that, yep.
You go ahead. What were you
No,
going to say,
exactly
Jade?
what you were saying. It looks like the fire department is starting to put it out.
And perhaps at least assessing the situation to figure out. But we saw some more of those sparks flying because of the electrical lines, perhaps.
And do we know anything about the flea market? Was this, something where there might have, hopefully weren't any, people in there, through the storm, but anything about what might have been going on there, or, what kinds of things are stored in that area?
Right now we have very little information. Honestly, we just kind of pulled up on the scene here and happened to be here at the right place at the right time. I know we called 911 as soon as we saw the place on fire, but there are also people on the other side over there. They possibly called the first responders too. But it was very big at one point. Luckily, it looks like the fire department is starting to put it out. But it's quite interesting what would have possibly started this, especially in the middle of a hurricane.
Yeah, I have to wonder if it was a downed power line or something like that.
Yeah, it seems to happen almost every hurricane. We typically see a fire, really several throughout the area. So no surprise there. Now, as far as this is concerned, it does look like the situation is under control, perhaps, because we did see the black billowing smoke. Now it's turned to white, and we're seeing very few flames. So, I mean, they're definitely still there. It seems like they flare up every once in a while, but certainly seems like it's getting under control. So that is a huge relief. Tell me about that area of what you see around it. So we see a flea market on the left, Jade. What do you see on the right side? And then closer to where you are there any other buildings in that area of what you can see through the smoke?
This does look like a business kind of industrial area. There are a lot of tarps up around the fences, so it's hard to see kind of what other businesses are here. We tried to talk to someone earlier, but unfortunately we didn't speak Spanish, but they were pointing at the fire, and I think they may have been the ones who also notified first responders as well.
Yeah. Probably not a lot of people out to be able to ask and talk to you right now, which is a good thing.
And I want to ask Jade, because obviously you guys were relocating. Were you heading towards something? And can you tell us anything about some of the road conditions and what you guys were seeing, on your way to where you were going?
Yeah, we were heading into the city from Rosenberg, and when you saw me earlier, it was just sprinkling, but as we headed up towards on 59, the rain was starting to get more intense, and the rain and the wind gusts, so clearly, the hurricane and the bad weather is not over. But like I said, when we were on 59, that's when we noticed the smoke, and we got off to come check out this scene.
All right. We are so appreciative of you being there. Just one last question for you. A lot of people might not know where Windswept Lane in Southwest Houston is. Can you give us a major cross street so we have a better idea of where you are?
Yes, give me one moment. A street nearby is Green Ridge, and I would say that we are north of Southwest Freeway.
Okay, that gives us a better idea.
On the west side of Houston.
Okay. All right, Jade, will you all be safe out there? I'm thankful to see that it looks like things are definitely getting under control. We're seeing some firefighters walking out, and looks like nobody's in a huge panic now, so that's a really good thing. Thanks for being out there. Be safe, and we'll be checking in with you throughout the morning.
And we are going to go now. We're going to check back in with Sally. She was at the scene at Harwin where the road is flooded, and it looks like it's still pretty flooded there behind her. We were watching about an hour ago when we checked in with her. Cars trying to drive through this. One got stuck, and people had to hop out and push it out of there. So good morning to you again, Sally. Can you give us an update on the situation there?
Yeah, man, we need Beryl to go away, ladies. As you can see, things have not gotten much better out here. We have been getting slammed for the last 3 hours here in Southwest Houston as the eye wall has just come right over us. You can see this is the parking lot where we are. When we first started reporting out here, the water was not up over the parking lot. This is above the street level, so you can imagine just how deep it is out there. There are times when we see white caps on those the water on the roadway, like right now here at the intersection of Hillcroft and Harwin. These hurricane force wind gusts are just kicking up the water here where it's creating a current. And on top of that, you have sheets of rain still falling, just aggravating the flash flooding situation out here. This is one of the first high water vehicles that we've seen. So perhaps they're going to perform some rescues right now, help some folks who are stranded. But take a look at the waves that it causes. Our photographer Ray Williams is going to back up out of the way here. Every time a driver comes through here, this is what we're dealing with. There There is debris all in this roadway. This SUV, this 4Runner that you see here, this 4Runner actually just hopped up onto the median, so that's why it looks like that driver is a little bit higher up. We've got a tree down right behind him. This is, of course, a popular shopping area, a very diverse international area. All of these businesses are closed today. The power is out. The street light's not working. You see the sign that's over there just in the middle of the road. I cannot tell you how many wicked noises we have heard out here. When we came to you about an hour or so ago, this tarp was still up on this business, and we have just watched it fall, watched it slam back and forth, and we moved our cars, of course, out of the way so we wouldn't get hit here. But this is the area I was standing in when I saw you earlier, and look at this car over here that drove into high water there. That driver right there thankfully got out okay, and we've seen him just kind of walking back and forth trying to get help. And Ray, I don't know if you can see, there's one other car way down there, a silver car. So we've got 2 cars that are stuck here in high water. Everybody inside able to make it out okay, but that's exactly why we want everyone to stay off the roadways until this threat passes here. It is still just absolutely nasty out here. We're cold, we're wet, and we want Beryl to say goodbye soon. Back to you guys.
Yes, we do. We can't think of anything better. We can tell you, Sally, it has finally been downgraded. No longer a hurricane. Beryl is now a tropical storm. We're moving in the right direction, but we have a ways to go.
Yeah, so we want to go right now to our chief meteorologist, Mike Iskovitz, to get that update that just came in. Mike?
Yep. So, we're trying to look for some light at the end of the tunnel, some encouraging news, and I could tell you that it's of little consolation to, all the folks that are dealing with the damage that's already happened. But we can tell you that it is now a tropical storm, Beryl, and it's picking up speed a little bit as far as moving out of the area. And I'll tell you, in the greater Houston area, things are going to improve dramatically within the next 30 to 45 minutes. So let's get to it. Let me show you the latest numbers. Again, this just came in. In fact, it's not even 10 o'clock yet, but it just came in moments ago from the National Hurricane Center. So as of the 10 a.m. advisory, 70-mile-per-hour winds on tropical storm Beryl. The pressure is up a little. So the higher the pressure, the weaker the storm. So still 984 millibars, which is still a fairly significant tropical storm. It is moving to the northeast now at 13 miles per hour. Previously it was moving at 12, so it's moving a little faster, which means that by 11 a.m., so that in an hour basically, we're looking for the storm to be making its way, would you believe it, into the Cypress and Spring area. Actually, it's moving into Cypress now, but the eye, which is a very large circulation right now, is actually going to be moving over places like Spring and the Woodlands, and then quickly making its way over Conroe by 12:30. Now, keep in mind, the center is actually not where the nasty stuff is. It's kind of going to be over here, which means Willis and Splendora and even up to around San Jacinto County could actually get in on some nasty weather coming up over about 3 hours from now. And then beyond that, it exits the area very quickly. The latest wind gusts are still pretty wild, really. I mean, it's unbelievable, the gusty winds that we're getting. When the hour turns here, coming up in 3 minutes, we'll get some new data coming in here. But recently, within the last hour, we've had 75 to 82 mile per hour wind gusts measured at both airports in Houston, which is really rare. Even in a lot of the big hurricanes we've had, it doesn't happen all that often. The center of circulation here is going to be moving up here into northern Harris County. And eventually, what that means is that the focus of the rain is going to be shifting a little bit. So, for example, we've had extremely heavy rain in Houston. A lot of that is starting to let up just a little bit. The focus of the heavy rain right now, shifting from around Webster to Pasadena to Crosby and Sheldon and around Humble. We still have a flash flood warning in effect for Houston and just about all of Harris County until 11 a.m. So that's another hour. And it'll be kind of reconfigured after that. North of Houston, it's now in effect until 1 p.m. for that reason that I mentioned, that center is going to be moving up past Cypress and toward the Woodlands. It's going to pull a lot of moisture and rain along with it into Montgomery County, Liberty County, and then closer to around Livingston. Down to the south, we had so much rain earlier this morning that even though it has let up a lot, we have this huge area here, all of Brazoria County, much of Galveston County, much of Matagorda County, all under what's called an aerial flood warning. So that means we don't really have any additional flooding that's taking place, but because of the fact that we have what I would call steady, continued flooding. So a lot of the creeks are all out of their banks, the roadways are flooded, and it's just not getting any worse, but it's really not getting any better anytime soon. So that advisory is in effect until 2 p.m. All right, we have seen some big-time improvements in a lot of spots. I mean, look, this center of circulation is really big, and it still includes Katy and Cypress right now. Katy at 26-mile-per-hour wind gust, a far cry from what we're seeing elsewhere. The focus of that heavy rain over the next hour is going to be from around Humble back up to Conroe and Willis, and then up to around Huntsville. It's really shifting off to our north. On the backside of it here, finally, we're going to get some relief. Fort Bend County, yes, it's still going to be windy, but the rain is going to really start to let up down around Sugar Land and even eventually here around Pearland. When we take a look at how fast those clouds, the cloud droplets are moving, we're still getting some velocities of more than 90 miles per hour up there in parts of Harris County. Now, that doesn't mean that at the surface we're getting 90-mile-an-hour winds, but if you get a downpour out of some of these rain bands, that velocity, that momentum can sort of be pulled down by the rain if you're in these heavy rain bands, and that can give you those extremely high wind gusts that we're seeing. So this is a little bit of an encouraging sight for those of us in the, let's say if you're in Fort Bend County, let's say you're in Katy, Sugar Land, and then all the way down at a very hard hit, Brazoria County, is that if you see at the end here, we're finally seeing the rain really let up for most areas south of Interstate 10. And the focus of it is going to be inundating Montgomery County and northeast Harris County. So like I said, we're talking about Humble, Atascocita, Kingwood, Porter, Conroe. You guys are really going to be in the thick of it here for the next hour, maybe 90 minutes or so, and we'll gradually see improving conditions in Houston, although certainly not quickly enough, right? So the storm is starting to become a little bit less, huge when you take a look at these bright colors here. We're still seeing the core of the system fairly impressive, pretty feisty at this point still, but we're not seeing that huge sort of extent of the really heavy rains and wind that we had earlier this morning. And here's a close-up view. When we're looking for these darker spots here, that's where we have the heavier rain that's falling, the taller cloud tops. Down here to Brazoria County, I just want to remind you, I know you guys were so hard hit and you're probably ready to bust out of the house at this point, having the morning that you've had around Lake Jackson. But just be advised that it's going to keep flooding down there for a while. Same thing here around Angleton and heading up to around Alvin. That flooding is going to continue. So what about forecast wind gusts for the rest of the day? Well, let's go ahead and hit fast forward to 4 p.m. this afternoon. We should see a very welcome improvement. It's still going to be kind of windy, still a bit gusty out there, but I mean, we're talking about wind gusts of 24 to 30, maybe 35 miles per hour, which is a far cry from the 70, 75, and 80 mile per hour gusts that we've been experiencing. Let me just fast forward ahead here to the 7-day forecast because we haven't been talking much about this for obvious reasons. Today, we're going to eventually lower that rain chance, but for right now, everybody's still getting in on the rain. Still count on some 40 to 75 mile per hour wind gusts in the short term, and then that'll tone down just a little by the late afternoon. Now, the next few days, I got to tell you, a lot of our models are actually showing almost no rain tomorrow, maybe even no rain. I'm worried that there could be a lingering rain band behind it, but the thing is, we might end up with, hold on a second.
Tornado watch is now ended in Houston.
Okay.
In Harris County,
Good.
but up into Montgomery County and Northeast.
Got it. Okay, so the whole area was under a tornado watch before, and now it's just the areas I was mentioning that are in that that leading edge of the hurricane. Let me go ahead and go back and show you. So remember, I was sharing with you how the center of circulation had moved up to the northwest part of Harris County. Now it's this area that's under the tornado watch. So not here anymore and not in Harris County anymore, but areas north of Houston, we still need to watch these rain bands for some potential rotation. And I would say even out here, too, is where you're going to have a good chance. And that's moving into like Winnie and Port Arthur, Beaumont area. So, you know, I will say that we are, you know, right now, yeah, you know, maybe it's some relief that the winds are letting off a little bit. But 288, that white truck that you see there, prayers for that person, because apparently they just drove into it and that water is up to the window levels. Goodness gracious. Well, hopefully the first responders are aware of this. I mean, obviously they are aware of it. Look, it's on Houston TransStar, which means that the Emergency Operations Center, they're seeing this. So for anybody who's watching us online, especially from out of town, just know that they know. But just it really, obviously, an extremely scary situation to be in. And again, we cannot stress enough to everybody to please stay home. Even if the wind starts to get lighter and you're starting to get cabin fever or whatever, you have to stay home. And if, your boss or whatever says that you're required to come to work, you know, the only thing you can say is the whole city is flooded. You know, you're risking your life literally trying to get from point A to point B right now. Obviously, that bridge that goes across 288 is elevated, and so you're okay in that regard. But this is 288 at 610. You know, this is an area, unfortunately, that is notorious for flooding. From 610 up to the McGregor exits, you know how badly this is flooded in previous storms. And so we'll keep an eye on this. Hopefully the person or people that are in there are going to be okay. But just for everybody's watching, just know, the emergency responders know, and I'm sure that they're scrambling to go make a water rescue right now. But that is scary as heck, and we just don't want that to happen to anybody else. Because when we have inland flooding, that's the most dangerous place you could be is in your car. The safest place you could be is at home.
That is a very scary image because you're right, that car is submerged pretty deeply in the water, and we haven't seen anybody get out of that car yet. So hopefully they will get a response there soon. I want to give you just a couple of updates on numbers. I just checked our outages from CenterPoint. It's reporting that we're now at 1.9 million outages across the area. And then, of course, there are other power companies. So really there are higher numbers than that of power outages across the area. So it's pretty vast. We've also seen 1,000 flights in and out of Houston have been canceled so far today. And then, of course, we've also had 2 deaths that we have reported so far. A man in a home, a tree fell on the home, and he died, 53 years old, in the Humble area. And just recently, we also heard of a woman who was killed when a tree fell on their home. So we're working to find out more about both of those situations, and we will update you. But very tragic losses from this storm so far. We do want to go out to our Chelsea Edwards. She is joining us live to give us an update. Where are you headed now, or where are you at now, Chelsea? And give us a look at what some of the conditions are.
Yeah, we are deeper into Lake Jackson. We've been taking a tour of the area. The best way to describe what we've been seeing is just a mess. I mean, trees down everywhere, signs down, stoplights down, windows broken in homes, also high water on several of these streets. So interestingly enough, we've been rolling through this neighborhood that has a lot of streets named after trees, sycamore, cypress, and we've been seeing nothing but trees down in this area. I mean, from, branches to the entire tree being uprooted. So Jeff is behind the wheel right now taking us through this neighborhood. It's pretty much an obstacle course, and that's a good way of describing it. You can see, some where the tree was just broken in half here. And you can imagine these trees have been around for decades. I know we have a lot of trees north of north of Houston, but there are a lot down here in this area. So we've been making our way around. Some people have started cleanup. Not a whole lot that could be done right now at this moment. I think everybody's just also been trying to wait to see if we were going to get that second round of the storm, but since it's looking fairly clear at this point, we're seeing more and more people coming out, even people pulling out their equipment, trying to clear the roadways here. One thing I do want to mention that the city of Lake Jackson posted was that, there was this expectation that trees would be down in this area. There were just so many trees. However, they do not want people to approach trees that are over roads because there could be live power lines tangled in them or hanging near them. We were showing you earlier where we were in another area where there were plenty of power lines down. So just something that people should be aware of if they are getting out to start cleanup, not to approach a tree or try to handle a tree that is down over a road when you aren't sure that a live power line could be entangled in it. So another thing, if you do come across a power line, a down power line, you want to stay 35 feet away. So I know we've been encouraging people to stay inside anyway, kind of let emergency officials come out and start cleanup and things like that. I think a lot of people are just anxious to get out the house after all that's happened here. But yeah, people are already getting out here, starting to clean up, and we just want them to do it safely if they do step outside. But you can see it is quite the mess over here in Lake Jackson.
Such an important reminder, Chelsea, because it would be so easy if you're trapped somewhere to not know what to do, but try to get out and move that tree. And you think about how heavy they are, you can get injured. And again, those power lines, a big problem. Now, obviously, the neighborhoods like this, it's such a dramatic, sickening scene to see because we know it is going to cost everyone so much money in order to remove these trees. And think about how many are down, Chelsea. It's going to take a long time for all of this to be removed just because it is so many people in our area. What were the roads like getting there? So this is the neighborhood. What were the highways like to get there? Were you seeing that on the side of the roads as well?
Yeah, not so much on the highways, just because there wasn't as much. We did see. I remember a street lamp that was down. So, more signage and lights closer to the freeway. But of course, here, once you're in the neighborhood, that's where you're seeing all these trees. You can even see it from 288, trees down in the neighborhoods, signs down, things just blown all over the place. So, it is just a mess. I mean, I wouldn't encourage people to get out in the streets because there's just so much debris at this point. And we're just hoping people just hang tight. I know the power's out in this area, just like many places across our area. But we don't want people to just get on the roadways and start trying to navigate this because there's also flooded streets and high water in some areas, and it's one of those things where people think that they can make it through, but then you end up with an emergency situation or you have something swimming around in there that you're unaware of. So it's not something to play in. Just, hang tight if you can.
This is the first time we've seen water on the roadways while you've been driving around, but I don't even really see it splashing, so it's obviously not very deep in that neighborhood.
Yeah, so in this area, it's not as bad. We've just been running across some pockets of it. Some of it, we're in an SUV, luckily, so some of it has been a little trickier to get around, but just been doing a great job making sure that we don't get our vehicle flooded. And I mean, the only other vehicles we've really seen out here are some, some high-powered SUVs and things like that for people who are really anxious to start cleanup. We saw a guy out here ready to start working on a tree. So, I think it's something that we just don't want people to take a chance with.
No, and I'm glad to see that your photographer is very wise there, backed up, playing it safe like we're encouraging everyone else to do. Chelsea, thanks for being out there. Let us know if there's any updates.
All right, thanks.
All right, Melissa Wilson here, and now we bring in our evening anchor, Caroline Collins. Thanks for coming in. And
you've been doing such a great job covering all this. I've been watching all morning. Just crazy to see what's going on out there, and now we're seeing damage and what's left, and just staying informed. You guys have been doing a great job.
Oh, thanks. And I know you've got a busy day ahead, too, as we really work all over the greater Houston area now. I want to make sure you know we are downgraded to a tropical storm, and why that may seem like a sigh of relief for a lot of people, you got to know it's still to come for so many people, especially on the north side.
Yeah, it's been wild. When I was driving in here, it was raining so hard, and now to see like where Chelsea was, for that rain to be letting up, you can see areas still flooded, all the debris on the road. We have over 1 million without power. I feel like this is just the very beginning of what we're going to see unfold as this thing moves on through here.
And we want to make sure you know that our city leaders are really closely watching this to let us know what's going on, to bring us up to date with what we can expect throughout the day. We're expecting to hear from Mayor John Whitmire anytime. We'll be certainly cutting into that the second that happens. And then we've been talking to constables all over. They're actually out and about in neighborhoods helping people, including, unfortunately, 2 people who lost their lives after trees crashed into their homes in Humble, and also one house in Houston.
It's so sad. It's so sad, but it's so encouraging that they are keeping us up to date, and we do have this information available for us. And we do know that the mayor is supposed to speak here soon, which is, you know, just another positive to hear from our leaders in a time like this. But definitely avoid those areas like you saw that are flooded. That's when we could see avoidable danger happen. It seems like the 2 incidences that happened, these people were in their homes, and unfortunately the wind knocks trees over. You know, they were doing what they were supposed to do. So do what you're supposed to do, and just, you know, hope for the best until we ride this thing out.
Yeah, let's check in with our meteorologist, Allison Gargaro, closely monitoring this for us all morning long. Allison, how is it looking right now? Who are you most concerned about at this point?
North of I-10. So we're talking Montgomery County, and then all points north and east. So the good news is that this thing is losing some steam. As of 10 o'clock, we got our latest advisory, and maximum winds are now at 70 miles per hour, meaning this is a tropical storm. Yes, it is still in the stronger ranking of tropical storm winds, but this is now making its way up towards Cyprus and into spring. I mean, we have watched this all morning long make its way inland. So what I have is our radar loop just for us here in Houston. So it's not showing any of the radar north of that, but the latest models does have this decreasing by a little bit later this evening down to about 45 mile per hour winds, and then likely becoming a tropical depression, if not a remnant low, as it continues off to the north and east. But I want to take you out to some of our bayou levels. This is going to be very important for folks that live along, if not live near, any of the bayous that I'm going to mention. So let's start off at White Oak Bayou at Houston. So that's going to be very close to I-10. We are now seeing it at moderate flood stage. So you can see 34.17 feet. And to be at major, it just needs to go up a bit more. And the thing is, we're still going to be seeing runoff from the heavy rain that's already fallen, and still the potential for some of that rain to fall. So there we go with one bayou. Let's take you out to Buffalo Bayou. This is going to be at Shepherd. The water has risen and is high. We're not quite at minor flood stage yet, but you can see that about less than 4 feet more, and it would be at that level. Taking you down a bit more, we're at Brays Bayou at Houston. So you can see Bel Air just off to the west of that. So honestly, that's going to be pretty close to just to the south of those 2 other locations that I mentioned. Again, the water level is high. And then I just want to take you over to Brays Bayou. This is going to be at Gessner Drive. And just moments ago, we saw that it is now at minor flood stage by 0.3 inches there, but nonetheless, we're still seeing that water continue to rise. I mean, every time I've showed you these graphics, numbers have bumped up just a bit. So this is likely going to continue, as now there is that flash flood warning in effect until 1 o'clock. So that's the thing. It keeps getting extended. So yes, maybe at that time, we're not going to be seeing quite as much rain in the area, but that doesn't mean that we're still not seeing flooded roadways, meaning it's not recommended to get out on the roads through early this afternoon. Now, this is an overlay of our 12-hour rainfall totals. And these are radar estimates. So this is not set in stone exactly what any of our gauges are picking up, but still, take a look. Down your Lake Jackson to Freeport, Angleton, anywhere from 8 to about 10 plus inches of rain in total over the last 12 hours. So that has been past when we did see that landfall. Now taking you up to Santa Fe, out to Alvin, even into Thompson's and Liverpool there, about 7 to 8.2 inches. But let's take you up to Houston. And I'm going to need to even go all the way to the Woodlands, where we are seeing anywhere from 5, 8 to nearly 11 inches of rain in total that have fallen. That's why we are seeing these swollen rivers, swollen bayous. And the thing is, folks that live along any of these flooded roadways, you just can't go outside. I mean, take a look at the picture right down here in the bottom right-hand corner of your screen. And I believe that's 288. And we see at least 2 vehicles that are almost completely submerged. The thing is, when you drive through flooded roadways, which we do not recommend, but you don't know how deep the water is. So again, this is our TransStar, so 288 at 610. And I see 2 vehicles there, and it looks like 1 vehicle that just went over the overpass, which, you know, looks like it's clear. There's another one, but we just don't know where the flooding is besides this underpass. And it looks like there's a truck or a big SUV, and then kind of in the back, difficult to see because it's not completely zoomed in, but it does look like some sort of sedan that you can barely see the top of the car there, and you can maybe see the front windshield of that larger vehicle. And there we go, basically right on cue. The fire department is there. They are likely coming to hopefully rescue the person, maybe people that are in that vehicle. Again, we really don't have any updates for you other than what we can see at this very moment. You know, I haven't been watching it completely to know if somebody has been able to get out, or, you know, are they able to roll the windows down, whatever it is. But it does look like the fire department is on the scene, and hopefully we can watch a rescue and make sure that everybody is staying safe there. Now, I want to get back over to oh, he's on the roof of the truck. Okay. Oh, yes, you can kind of see a little outline. So it does look like just 1 person there. So he is clearly waiting to be rescued. And you can see now there's a person up right on top of the road. So this is going to be on the left-hand side of your screen. You can kind of see somebody walking. Again, it's a little blurry for us to see at this moment, but hopefully that is a first responder that's maybe trying to talk to this person to say, hey, you know, we're working on getting you there. You know, with the fire truck there, that person probably feels a sense of relief because he doesn't know how fast the water is going to rise. And there's likely still some rain and, you know, a lot going on at this time, but thankfully the fire department is on the scene.
Wow, I gotta be honest, this was one of the scariest things I was unfortunately anticipating to see today. And you can see just how high that water has risen. Look at that overpass there. And then that looks like the top of the car, as Allison was saying, and a person on top of that car. We are hoping we see a rescue here, but this is what, unfortunately, I was sort of bracing myself to be witnessing as we continue our coverage today.
And what's sickening about it is just while we've been talking in just the last couple of minutes, you can tell the water's rising because we're seeing less and less of that vehicle. I mean, it's just happening so quickly. And
This really looks quickly right now.
We were seeing vehicles coming the other way earlier, and it looks like perhaps they've backed up and out of there because I don't see anybody else down here on this lower level, only crossing over. But what a dramatic scene, all unfolding along Highway 288 at 610. Look over to the far left-hand side of your screen. So awesome to be able to see that fire truck there and crews doing what they can to help.
My goodness, I hope that we see this person or people rescued because this is certainly a scary situation. And I think it's just a good reminder, even though, you know, conditions might be lessening in your area, you could easily drive into water like this. As you can see, it blends sort of in with the roadway because things are dark and hazy outside, and visibility, especially if it's raining, is not easy. And you could find yourself driving right into a potentially deadly situation. And in this case, we do have rescuers here, thank goodness. It's going to be interesting to see just how they're going to make their way down to that person, as it's sort of like racing against the clock.
It sure is. And
And take a look at the TransStar camera. It is just blowing in the wind, so the conditions are less than ideal there. But it looks like the rescue crews now on that, if you take a look at the grass, if you look at the hill, it looks like they're trying to make their way down it. But imagine how muddy and slippery this slope is. So it's a dangerous situation from them as well. They have to do what they can to make sure that they stay healthy, that they don't get injured on their way down. But it looks like they're doing what they can, and now it looks like they're backing off. So it may be they may have to go where it's not quite so steep. It looked like it was really difficult for them to get down right there.
It looks like they're going to a different angle. I see at least one person carrying something, probably a device that would aid in this rescue. And the ladder is extended. Not sure what they're going to do with that, but man, it just looks like that water is getting just higher and higher as the seconds go by. So it really is like racing against the clock in the middle of rain, in the middle of high winds. The traffic camera, you can see it shaking. That's from the wind. And it's dangerous for all that are involved in this right now.
If you look at the top of your screen now, right under the word TransStar, there was another vehicle that was making its way toward all this. I'm really hoping they stop. It's hard to tell if there's barricades out, but I could see the car coming toward, and now they're under, you can't see them because they're now covered under that bridge. So I really hope they were able to tell and nobody else drives into this. There are so many high water areas now that crews are having a hard time getting those barricades up to warn people not to go into it. So just know that there are a lot of problems like this around town where we do not want to see these high water rescues. Again, the crew's trying to figure out how to get to this person in the first place.
If I'm not mistaken, they're lowering that ladder down right now, and hopefully that person or people, it looks like just one person though, is able to latch on somehow and be lifted to safety. This looks like that is the plan of action right now. It is difficult to see, but if you look, you can see the white ladder on the truck stretching across your screen towards like the front of the overpass. It's right above where that person is on the car. Now there's another person walking down the slope towards the water.
And it's hard to tell what's on the end of that ladder. Maybe it's some type of safety device for them to grab onto. Perhaps it's some kind of cable or roping system. Very difficult to tell, but I believe that's the very end of the ladder where you see something dark hanging down from it. And now, again, that one crew member at the very edge of the water, I'm sure they're shouting out directions, probably trying to help those people or person. It's difficult to tell. Stay calm and just give them direction about what they're going to do. And it looks like actually the ladder goes past that dark spot, doesn't it? It looks like it's almost right over the vehicle now. It is almost there.
And it lowered a bit more. So I think we're right here. There must be some sort of rescue device on the tip of that ladder that they're trying to get this person to latch onto or just be able to be pulled to safety from. But man, I've never seen a rescue quite like this, using the ladder of a truck that's on dry land, stretching over into flooded water as the water seems to be just, I mean, it's rising. I mean, it is. That car is, it's like we're seeing less and less and less of the car.
And think about the strength of this ladder. It's just fascinating to see how they're able to just run it like that with the ground and just send it out over that water. And look at the water flow itself. The wind is blowing so hard that the water flow, I'm surprised the vehicle's not moving, because you can tell, you can actually almost see waves in that water.
And Melissa, you had mentioned before we had seen cars kind of coming towards this water. We don't see them anymore. We don't know if that means they're in the water or not. We're hoping that they just backed up, stayed put. Hopefully they could see that this is not something you want to be driving into. This is 288 at 610 North, a Houston TransStar camera. You're watching a live rescue right now. Fire department out there with a ladder truck. And we're just waiting anxiously to see if they pull this off.
And what's difficult about this situation, too, is you never know what is in that water. We have seen all kinds of things in floodwaters like this in the past. Huge piles of fire ants floating along, all kinds of different types of chemicals, snakes, even gators. And so I'm sure in a situation like this, they're trying to make sure that the crew stays safe, that nobody gets injured, but at the same time, make sure that this person is in a situation where they have a little time to put the perfect plan together
together to make sure that they are able to pull this off correctly and safely.
And Melissa, like you mentioned, the water being such a hazard, I believe also if power lines are down, you could be electrocuted. We've covered that before. We've seen that happen. So how would you even know if this water, you know, was dangerous and would, you know, electrocute you or something, or who knows what is in here? It's just so dangerous and so scary to watch. That person is still on the roof of their car at this point. It's crazy that they were even able to get out on the roof of their house, being how deep this car is.
Well, what a relief that they were able to get those windows down, because unfortunately that is something that we see time after time in flooding storms, is that if somebody has electric windows and they don't roll them down in the nick of time, the whole car shuts down. The pressure of the water, they're not able to open those doors, and if they don't have some type of device to break those windows, and they get trapped in that vehicle. So a huge relief, first of all, to see them on top of the vehicle, even though it is still a very alarming situation. I don't see the emergency worker on the slope anymore. They may be back up at that fire truck trying to figure out how to pull this off. And I'm sure it's hard to get the ladder that low, because think about the slope. You've got a huge slope, and this is going up and out over that. And I'm sure to get it down that low in that angle, it may be physically impossible to do that.
I think, you know, they are trying everything that they can at this point.
Is there somebody on the ladder now? It looks like somebody might be crawling out over it.
There is somebody out crawling over the ladder right now, and then there's another person to the left side of your screen wearing black on the ground. So there's someone making their way out on the ladder. It looks like they're in a lighter color. You can see that little blurb kind of moving down the ladder. And then we just lost the person who was on the ground on the left side of your screen. They're making their way towards this person, and we're going to see if they can get them.
Yeah, so I guess what will happen at this point, I wish we could tell how many feet that are above, but it looks like, I mean, maybe 10, 20 feet. There's no way to tell how far that ladder is from that vehicle, but I'm assuming that at that point, they're going to have to throw down perhaps a rope ladder or something in order to be able to pull that person up. This is going to take a lot of physical strength, a lot of balance. There is a lot going on here. Now, multiple people on the ladder trying to get out to them.
At least 3 people are on this ladder. I just caught that in that view. You see a person in yellow, red, another one in yellow. 3 people up on that ladder making their way to that person who's stranded out there in these floodwaters. We've been following this now for several minutes, so we're going on 10 minutes of covering this particular rescue. Multiple people on the ground too, kind of orchestrating what's going on, and also being out there suspended like that on that ladder in these high winds that you could see has to be so challenging.
And they must be very concerned about what is in that water. And I'm thinking, Caroline, that it may be what you were talking about. Perhaps there are some wires down that they can see, because it seems like as close as this vehicle is to the shore, it would be very easy to throw him some type of flotation device, him or her, we can't tell at this point, throw a flotation device and just pull them in. They are doing everything they can not to touch this water. And so there must be some major concerns about that. So they're doing everything they can to pluck them up and over out of that water.
Well, you can, just like you mentioned, I mean, even just the rate at which this water is flowing, because if you look at the water, you can see waves in the water, meaning that water is moving. So I wonder just how fast it's flowing. It does appear like this is a man on top of this vehicle, and as far as we know at this point, it does look like just one person on top of the vehicle, and they are getting closer to the end of the ladder. They're making their way. It looks like they are almost there. The ladder stretches almost directly on top of this car, almost.
I'm so thankful for our first responders. They work so hard year in and year out. They have special trainings for situations like this, and you can imagine the adrenaline's flowing to do what they can to save a life right now. It looks like now that worker is at the very end of the ladder, right on top of this person. So any moment we may be seeing this person being hauled up. It's going to be really interesting to see how they pull this off, because at the very end of the ladder, I feel like this would be incredibly physically difficult to pull this off.
I'm wondering if we just lost the picture. Man, we just lost the picture.
Hopefully we can
I hope
pull
it comes back up. But you saw that wind blowing, making that rescue extremely difficult as somebody is on the edge of that ladder, suspended over water. The wind is blowing. probably some rain coming down in that area, making that extremely challenging. If that camera comes up, we will absolutely bring you back to that rescue.
And you think about a typical man weighs about 200 pounds. You're at the very end of the ladder in a very stressful situation, and somehow they've got to get that person up and on top of that ladder. What a dramatic situation that's going to be taking place there. And if the wind messed up that camera, there's no way we're going to be able to pull that back, because someone probably physically can't get there right now to do it. So we're going to be closely monitoring that and seeing if we can get, I don't know if it's possible to even get our crews that way. I know we'll do everything that we can to be able to pull that off to see what's happening.
It's hard to tell because you can see that whole area was totally flooded. So that's what people are going to be running into when they try to drive, our crews included, or just anyone. If you can, stay home. I mean, that's the smartest thing.
And I know you have to be like us, like literally on the edge of our seats, pulling for everybody out there who's in a situation like this. We've been monitoring a situation in Southwest Houston with a fire, we think, at a flea market. Let's check in right now with Jade Fleury, who's been there since it started. In fact, they were one of the first people on the scene, called 911. What's happening there now, Jade?
Well, right now, when it comes to the weather, it's raining. Earlier, this place was up in flames. Now you can see firefighters are still dousing it with water. Again, this is a structure. We're told it was a flea market. And the Houston Fire Department tells us that they think it may have started from a down power line, and that's what ignited it. But they also say that the wind gusts from the storm made the fire bigger, and it increased. So they're continuing to douse it. Luckily, they say nobody was injured, but earlier when we showed you guys the fire, this place was up in flames. It was huge. And like I said, this is at the flea market. We are on Windswept Lane, north of 59, near Fountain View. And again, firefighters, first responders are still here. We noticed the fire when we were driving into the city on 59, and you can see there's still some power lines that are sparking over there, which is a little bit scary. And there is one utility pole that looks like it's still trying to catch on fire, but it's just so hard to believe that a fire can even start when it's raining in these conditions. But again, thankfully, nobody was injured during this incident, and they gave us kind of an inside look. Again, everything in there is pretty much burned up.
Sickening to see. Have you been able to talk to anybody in that area about anything was anything stored there? Is this one of those flea markets that people bring their stuff every weekend, or do you know if things were actually there that they keep, where they have the same vendors week after week?
We haven't gotten a chance to talk to anybody out here yet, just because we kind of got out here. But again, these first responders have been dousing the fire for about 30 minutes now. We're not too sure about the vendors. It looks like it may have been individual units, but all of them pretty much got burned up. But again, thankfully, nobody was injured during this incident.
Jade, what are the weather conditions like right now? I can see it is raining. The camera has raindrops on it. I can see the trees blowing. Kind of give us an update on what it's feeling like out there at this moment.
At this point, the rain has been on and off. At some points, there will be a drizzle. Right now, it's kind of coming down on us. Those wind gusts are still pushing us around. Luckily, they're not as bad as they were earlier, but again, it's still raining. It's still the hurricane conditions.
All right, and it seemed like earlier it was raining fairly heavily when all that started. Do you feel like that helped put those flames out a little bit faster, even though our Houston Fire Department was there doing their part as well?
You would think that the rain would have had an impact on the fire, but honestly, it got bigger. I think those wind gusts are what kind of ignited it and made it even more serious and larger than what it would have been if it wouldn't have been as windy.
Wow. Well, Jade Fleury, thanks so much for keeping us updated on what's happening out here. It's, you know, that just shows you how hard that rain's coming down. Your photographer, I hope you guys are safe, just wiped off the lens because it really is crazy.
All right, thank you so much for that. And I'm just taking a look now. I want to refresh and see how we're doing on our power outages, because every time I look, it's so many more. Now 2.1 million people without power, so many severe areas. Our crews are having a hard time getting to where they want to go.
They are. We have Jonathan Mejia, who was on his way to Galveston, but then had to pull over, I understand. Jonathan, can you give us an update about where you are and what you're seeing and experiencing at this moment?
Yeah, we're in Fort Bend County. It is difficult to hear you because of the winds, and the self-service isn't too great here, but we're just seeing and feeling the wind pick up here and splash the rain here. I'm going to take you a look at this live situation. You're going to see lots of stuff just floating around here in this gas station. You're seeing a trash can. Also, gas pumps are out of place, and street signs have fully come off from this location here. Now, I want you to, if you can take a look over here, I don't know if it's possible. I'll show you this way. What you're going to look right there, that's a piece of a car. That flew off one of these cars here, and I just spoke with the man who owns this part of the his vehicle. He tells me that he came out here looking for gas because he lost power. He needed gas for his generator, but as he was driving, he heard a big pop, and that's when he realized that the back of his car piece broke off. So he's just been driving around following it to make sure that it doesn't put anyone else in harm's way, in danger. As you mentioned, we've been trying to get to Galveston. That's where we were trying to go to see the impacts there, but it's been completely difficult to get there because several roads have been closed. The GPS continues to reroute us where roads are completely flooded, so we don't want to put ourselves in a situation where we're stranded there. So we're going to continue to monitor the situations here and make our way to Galveston the safest way possible to bring you the latest information. Of course, you can always stick with us both on air and online at fox26houston.com. Back to you guys.
Wow, it really looks windy out there. Jonathan, are you hunkering down here for a bit? If you can hear us, I know you said it's hard to hear, or are you going to try to head on down to Galveston still? Okay, he can't hear us. It's bad in that area. The wind's really loud out there, and conditions are bad whenever it's raining like that, and our crews are out there trying to stay safe, so we appreciate their updates.
Yeah, we're doing everything we can to keep them safe, but at the same time making sure you have everything that you know and need to know at home. We do have an update on that dramatic moment when we were literally sitting on the edge of our seats watching a man being rescued. He is safely on the ground. We're glad to say they were able to get a flotation device around him, and they were able to get him up, and then he was able to wade out of that last part of the water and onto the land. So he is okay. So thank goodness for the Houston Fire Department, for all of our emergency crews doing what they can. But we want to let you know now 3 other vehicles are submerged in that same area at Highway 288. Remember, we were concerned we could see them driving that way. They unfortunately kept driving into the water.
And 610. And I was saying that when it's kind of not fully sunny and it's gloomy out and this water kind of blends in with the road, it's easy to do this, unfortunately. So you have to be so careful because you don't know when this type of flooding is going to pop up in these types of situations. So you could see a van, and then maybe it looks like another type of van, and then it looks like a car right under there, stuck in the waters, unable to move.
And then look at again, the same thing of the wind is it's blowing so hard in that area. It's just, it's crazy. It just looks like storm surge, right, of this water. Well, let's check in right now with our chief meteorologist, Mike Iskovitz, because we know that even though we are now downgraded to a tropical storm from a hurricane, things are still severe in some areas.
They sure are. Hi, Mike.
It is amazing. Hey, Caroline. First time being able to talk to you today. We are still actually seeing some very strong winds in Houston, even though a lot of the rain is starting to let up a little bit. It is hanging in there on this eastern, you could call it an eye wall. I mean, we don't really have that much of a defined eye anymore, but the eastern or right side or so-called dirty side of the circulation is still bringing some pretty high winds. So I'll show you what I'm talking about here. The storm is actually spinning right now right up there in northwest Harris County. I mean, it's hard to pick out the exact center, but give or take, it's around Tomball or heading up probably to around Magnolia, actually. But notice here on this east side or right side of the circulation, these are sustained winds. These aren't gusts. I mean, the wind is howling out there right now at tropical storm force all across that half side of Harris County. On the other side of the county, you go over to Katy, and you've got winds coming in behind, sort of that backside wind of about 26 miles per hour. So the wind does vary a lot depending on where you are. And by the way, where you see no numbers popping up, those are areas where we have lost communication with the automated weather observation site. So Galveston went offline when we started having these wind gusts of 80 miles an hour. We lost Galveston, we lost Angleton, Lake Jackson, we lost Wharton, Palacios. We just don't have any more data coming from those spots. And so there's a lot of repairs there to be done. I wanted to loop this over the last 3 hours just to give you an idea of, it's hard to imagine just how bad it is out there right now. It is improving. So when you look at the extent of the rain right now at the beginning and then compare it to the end, we've seen a dramatic improvement from most areas south of Interstate 10. Now, there's a lot of damage that's been done. I mean, we got trees down, we've got electricity out, we've got a lot of flooding still taking place, but the rain is slowing down in a lot of spots down here to the south of Houston. Still windy, but at least the rain has slowed down a lot for Richmond, for Sugar Land, for even Stafford and back over to Pearland. But this is one of the spots of greatest concern right now. I think especially that part up there, which is affecting places like Atascocita, Huffman, all the communities there around Lake Houston, because that is that front right quadrant of the circulation here, which tends to be the nastiest. So you've got the heavy rain coming down. You probably have really, tough swirling winds up there around Lake Houston. So that's one of the biggest concerns that I have right now, is just off to the east of Humble and also heading up the road to New Caney, Splendora, and those areas. Just please stay indoors in those areas. You could get a sudden, really nasty wind gust still of maybe 60 or 70 miles per hour, believe it or not. And then we're going to begin the drying process here in Houston. We've had so much rain. At this point, we still have a flash flood warning that's in effect for Houston and most of our surrounding areas until 11 a.m. So that's in 17 minutes, but it'll end up maybe either being converted to a flood advisory or maybe it'll be reconfigured. By the way, the northern part of Harris County, like Spring and Humble and heading up to around Conroe and those spots, or the Woodlands, you're under a flash flood warning until 1 p.m. So we got another couple of hours on that one. Do you know what's ironic? This is really strange. I wanted to show you this, is that in Corpus Christi, they were preparing for the last several days for a hurricane landfall, right? Well, it turned, they didn't get much in Corpus, and would you believe they're actually under a heat advisory today? So they missed out on almost all the rain, and they're looking for a heat index close to 108 degrees. I mean, it's just amazing how Mother Nature will do that, right? This large green area down here in Galveston and Brazoria County is an area where we just have this steady flooding that's taking place, and so that's called an aerial flood warning, and that's going to be with you through 2 p.m. this afternoon. And we continue to see the center of circulation actually moved directly over Katy, is making its way up toward around Magnolia, Plantersville, that area currently. We're going to look for these colors to start to calm down. So where you see the dark reds and even those bright pinks that show up, that's where you have the tallest, coldest cloud tops. That's where you have a very well-developed storm and super heavy rain. We're seeing less of that. So the low is starting to fill in, as we say. So the pressure is going to start to rise. The winds will eventually begin to kind of slacken a little bit. But for right now, this thing is hanging in there, especially wrapping around that side of the circulation. Down here in Lake Jackson, I also wanted to let you know, this was one of the hardest hit spots. We had storm surge flooding down around Freeport. We had a lot of inland rainfall, and a lot of these rivers, like the Brazos River and others that drain into the Gulf of Mexico, you now have everything coming together. You have still a bit of a storm surge coming in off the Gulf, meeting up with the water that's trying to drain into the Gulf, and you end up with a rise in the river levels. That's happening, for example, over in like the Channelview area right now. So again, if you're just joining us, that's where the storm is located. It's in northwest Harris County, and it will be moving out of the area. Let's take a look at the futurecast wind gusts. So this is our graph computer model projecting what to expect by noontime in an hour and 15 minutes. Still looking at some wind gusts across the area of 40 to 50 miles per hour. And then by 1:30 in the afternoon, watch out in Cleveland and in Livingston and even in Huntsville. And then as we head toward the middle part of the afternoon, finally, many places start to see a big improvement to the extent of the wind field and the strength of those winds. Here's a look at the next 24 hours and where Beryl is going to be headed. It's actually moving out of the area really quickly. You know, previously there was a lot of chatter online about this storm resembling Harvey. It isn't, though. It's not going to hang around the way Harvey did. We're not going to have day after day of an inundation. It really is just a pretty short-term and scary event. We'll be improving. We'll stay breezy. We'll begin drying out by this evening. And here's a look at what to expect as the cleanup continues. Now, cautiously here, I have a 30% chance for some isolated storms in the forecast tomorrow and Wednesday. I'll be honest with you, there's a very good chance that all the moisture just exits for a couple of days and we see no rain at all. But I'm just concerned there may be a trailing rain band coming in behind, this storm. So I want you to just be cautious about tomorrow and Wednesday. But in general, we're going to have a pretty nice, smooth pattern to pick up the pieces after Beryl moves out later today.
All right, Mike, doing such a good job of keeping us up to date, not making us panic, but giving us the very valuable information that we need to know. It's a fine line,
It is, because it does sound like we will get through this, but unfortunately, we've already seen 2 people unfortunately have died as this storm has made its way across Houston. And I know that we do have some images of the second death that we reported in Precinct 4. There was a 74-year-old who's, the 911 caller said that a tree fell on my grandma's home, and we do have confirmed that person has passed away. This is images from that scene there. This is one of 2 deadly incidences that have happened so far throughout our coverage here in Houston.
Just sickening to see how fast and easy something like that can happen. The tree uproots, falls onto the home, and then a lot of times the roof will collapse on the person. The same thing happened to a 53-year-old man in Humble earlier this morning. So now 2 deaths confirmed of people just trying to stay safe in their home, and then this happens. We know that there's also flooding all over the greater Houston area, including in Galveston. So the storm first hit Matagorda, moved up toward Galveston. We saw a lot of storm surge, and we have a photographer who's in that area giving us an idea of what that looks like.
Wow, that is just incredible. You can see the wind is gusting, and this is live video from our photog Darlene on Harborside Drive in Galveston. And the water's looking high. You can see it rippling. The trees are blowing, and this is definitely impassable. So this is another instance of, don't accidentally drive or purposefully try to drive through water, because we've already been showing you how cars are getting stranded and rescues are happening. So this is really dangerous. Look at that wind picking up there.
Doesn't it almost look like there's a helicopter over it?
It does.
That it's whipping, and that is still those wind gusts. And in a situation like this, you think, well, it's innocent, it's just a few inches, but that's what happens. It can sometimes end up being feet, and it can just swallow up the vehicle. And you can tell there, if you look toward the left-hand side of your screen, at first you see the yellow stripe, and the further you look in, you can no longer see it, which means that water is fairly deep. And so we've seen our crews have to turn around over and over again this morning, just because they are playing it super safe this morning.
Even live on air, when we're watching our crews driving around, they'll come to an area like this, and luckily our amazing photographers and reporters are paying close attention, and they know to back up, turn around, don't drown. You hear this over and over and over again, but it just seems like every time we cover a weather event, unfortunately, we're also covering rescues, and even more unfortunately, we're covering people who don't make it out of these high waters once they drive their car in there, or if they try to walk through. It's dangerous. There could be power lines in there. You could get electrocuted. There's many other elements that could be in there. You can see on that right side of your screen, when that wind blows, those bushy trees or bushes there are just billowing in the wind, and it just is a really, really dangerous situation. And Melissa and I have been monitoring those power outages. Over 2 million impacted.
It's sickening to think about how many people are going to have a lot of problems maybe in the coming days, because there are so many people out to get that back going. And I want to make sure you know that you see this water here in Galveston. That is far from an isolated situation, because there are 33 reported high water locations in Houston. We know there's so many more that aren't actually showing up on Houston TranStar. These are on our main lanes, on our main frontage roads, 33 of them. And at least half of them are showing that that's not going to improve even a second before 3 p.m. and could even be extended past that. So you just have to know it is still a good idea just to stay in the comforts of home for quite some time
And
today.
that's a good point, because this water, as we know, can pop up so quickly that some areas are not going to be listed on that list quickly enough, because they're popping up so fast, and this is just going to continue throughout the day. This isn't going to let up.
And in the beginning of this storm, it seemed like our biggest problem were those trees, and we're told thousands of trees down in the greater Houston area. But now we're starting to really see this water really popping up problems all over the Houston area. Now again, I'm getting new reports from viewers every second in the Woodlands saying, oh my goodness, it's getting worse. force. So even though it's a tropical storm, now people north of us are really getting the brunt of it.
Yeah, it's like you can breathe a sigh of relief whenever it dropped to tropical storm, but then you can't because the rain and the wind and the water and the flooding keeps on coming. So yeah, good news. We found out, I think it was just before 10 o'clock, Mike Iskovitz and you two on the desk said it's downgraded to a tropical storm, but you still have to use an abundance of caution. We just switched our look back to those 3 vehicles that were stranded here.
Highway 288 is always a problem spot. We see this every single time in the same area, time after time, and it's because the water blends in so well with the highway, you can't tell the difference. And it looks like the water we showed you a moment ago in Galveston. It looks innocent enough, but you keep driving, and then here we go. They're stranded, and this is where that high water rescue was, where a guy was stranded on top of his vehicle. Now he has to be so happy to be on dry ground.
My goodness. And obviously once you get your car in a situation like this, you're probably not getting your car back. So it is very damaged. But we do want to make sure that you know that there are over 2 million people without power at the moment. As we mentioned, obviously crews are working to restore that, but I'd imagine it's quite difficult whenever these elements out there are still so dangerous.
And we talked to a lot of different county and city leaders earlier, and they say the outages are for a number of things. Certainly some high wind gusts blew out some transformers. We also have trees down all over power lines, all over the area. And I, you know what I expect to see very soon. And it's always such a beautiful sight. It gives me goosebumps, and I'm so thankful for them. We're going to see linemen coming in from other states all over the country. And if you are out and about in the coming days, I guarantee you, you're just going to see lines of them just coming in, doing everything they can to help us out. And we're just going to have to be really patient and know we're all in it together.
Well, I don't know if you realize this, Melissa. I've never experienced a hurricane before.
This is your first time.
One. Yeah, I moved to Houston almost 2 years ago now. So this is the first time that I've experienced it. And it's I feel very confident with our team of meteorologists and people like you who've been through so many events like this, covering these in Houston over the years. So I feel like I'm in good hands here alongside you and the team.
Sure.
I know, I feel very thankful.
But think about how many new-time Houstonians are experiencing what you are right now. So it's nice that you're able to do that with them. And we can, again, we're all in it together.
Totally, and we do have Allison is standing by with an update on our weather conditions as tropical storm Beryl makes its way on through. Allison, I know you have plenty of experience covering these hurricanes.
Plenty. And Mike and I were even talking about this morning. Each hurricane is just so different. You know, we talk about a Harvey that basically just sat overhead and dropped so much rain over the span of several days. Well, the thing is, I'd say a lot of people that are south of I-10 right now are pretty much in the clear. I'm not clearing you out for sure, but, you know, the heaviest rain and the strongest winds are north of the I-10 corridor as we speak. But I do want to bring you some rainfall totals just coming down from the National Weather Service. Hillshire Village saw just shy of 15 inches of rain in total. Sugarland saw just over 13¼ inches of rain. Brookside Village saw about 11 inches and 3/4 of rain in total. Friendswood just more than 10, and Waller more than 7 inches. Okay, so that was rainfall. Let's talk about peak wind gusts. Also coming down from the National Weather Service. State Highway 36 at Brazos saw 97-mile-per-hour wind gusts. Houston University saw just shy of 90-mile-per-hour wind gusts. Surfside Beach, 87 miles per hour. Hobby, 84, which we brought to you live on the air when it happened. And Galveston saw a wind gust of 78 miles per hour. So we still could be seeing some strong winds, but I'd say just shy of 100 miles per hour at Brazos, likely going to be where we peaked as the storm does continue to move through. So here's a look at our current wind gusts. Hobby still looking at a peak wind of 75 miles per hour, a Bush at 67, Conroe at 69, and take a look at Tomball, 44, but even out to the west. Again, they're gonna be on the western edge of the storm, looking at 52 to 54 mile per hour wind gusts. College Station out to Brenham. So we're still going to be seeing heavy rain and strong winds, but the heaviest heaviest rain is out on the northeastern edge. So I would say the eye is over Cyprus and basically over a pretty good chunk of 290, and we're going to continue to see this move up to the north. So folks that live in Katy down to Rosenberg, even Sugar Land, and Eastlake, Columbus, Belleville, you're starting to see some rain move back into your neighborhood. The thing is, it's definitely nothing as heavy as that you saw earlier, but it's still going to be pretty consistent. Now, downtown Houston and really inside the loop, not monitoring any rain right now. That trend does continue out to Beaumont Place and even down to Pasadena and into South Houston. But here we go, from Atascocita to Dogwood Acres, Roman Forest, Splendora, and to Conroe. This is going to be the main corridor of the strongest winds as well as the heaviest rain. I mean, you're seeing some spots that are shaded in purple here. I mean, we're looking at rain falling at a rate of 2 to 4 inches per hour. So talk about flooding. This is going to be the next spot that's likely going to be seeing an increase in those rainfall totals as we're on the what we call dirty side of the storm. It's still going to be that east and northeast side. So I mentioned Splendora to Cleveland, but up to Shepherd, Cold Spring, and then out toward New Waverly. Not quite to Huntsville yet. We're seeing another band of some pretty heavy rain, and I can guarantee there's some strong winds embedded with that as well. But folks that live down toward Lake Jackson, Angleton, Bay City, even Wharton, El Campo, Palacios, Port Lavaca, you're likely not going to be seeing much more in the way of rain. You know, still the chance for a few strong winds, nothing like what we're seeing up to the north. So, you know, please be careful as flooding is still going to be likely. Even though we're not seeing any more rain, the thing is, all of the flooded roadways need to drain somewhere. That's all going to likely go into local rivers and to bayous, and we're going to be seeing those water levels continue to rise, and we'll bring you some updates on that in just a bit. But as of the last hour, we are now no longer under a tornado watch in Harris County and Point South, but still in Montgomery County and off to the north and east. That does include Liberty County. Tornado watch continuing until this evening, so there's still going to be a possibility. Now, our exclusive Fox model does a good job at showing that center of the storm likely up, I'd say, between College Station as well as Huntsville by later this afternoon.